Imagine standing on the shores of Europe in the 16th century, watching a massive fleet of Ottoman ships approach. Thousands of soldiers, cannons roaring, sails filling with wind, a force seemingly unstoppable. Entire kingdoms trembled at their advance. And yet, despite their power, the Ottomans were stopped. Not by numbers, not by luck, but by a secret weapon that changed the course of history. What was it? How did Europe, fractured and vulnerable, manage to turn the tide against the empire that had terrorized the Mediterranean for decades? This wasn't a single battle, and it wasn't a simple invention. It was a combination of cunning strategy, technological innovation, and alliances that no enemy could anticipate. From the fortresses of Malta to the shores of Lepanto, Europe's secret weapon forced the Ottomans to reconsider what they thought was inevitable. Armies that had once seemed invincible faltered, ships that had dominated the seas found themselves outmaneuvered, and ordinary men and women, caught in the chaos, became part of a story that would echo across centuries. In this video, we'll uncover the layers of this secret weapon. You'll see how ingenuity, discipline, and tactical brilliance combined to produce results that reshape Europe. From daring naval strategies to the evolution of artillery, from the human cost to the psychological warfare that kept empires in check, we'll explore it all. We'll start with the origins of the Ottoman threat, then follow Europe's journey from fear to resistance, from scattered defenses to coordinated attacks that no Ottoman general could ignore. By the end, you'll understand why this secret weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a turning point, a masterstroke, and a lesson in strategy that still resonates today. So, let's begin. The Ottomans were advancing, and Europe had to act fast or face annihilation.
By the early 1500s, the Ottoman Empire had conquered vast territories in the Balkans, North Africa, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Their armies moved with terrifying efficiency, their fleets dominated the seas, and their reputation struck fear into the hearts of kings. Venice, Spain, and the Papal States knew the threat was existential. Every port city, every trade route, every fortress became a potential target. Europe was fragmented, kingdoms squabbling, alliances fragile, and communication slow. Yet the Ottoman military machine pressed forward, relying on sheer numbers, discipline, and advanced artillery. Europeans knew that standing still was death. Scholars, engineers, and military leaders began to experiment with innovations, better cannons, stronger fortifications, faster ships. But these were scattered efforts, and many doubted they could turn the tide. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only weaponry, but courage, strategy, and the ability to unite against a common enemy. And then came a realization that would change everything. The secret weapon wouldn't be built overnight, but it could decide the survival of Europe itself. In Venice and Genoa, engineers and military strategists experimented with combining old knowledge with new techniques. Gunpowder had arrived in Europe, and artillery was evolving rapidly. Fortresses could now be designed to withstand bombardments that had once leveled castles. Naval technology was improving, with faster galleys and coordinated cannon fire at sea. Europeans began to integrate these innovations into a coherent strategy. Fortresses were no longer isolated. They became part of a defensive network. Artillery crews trained for precision and timing. Navies coordinated to create overlapping fields of fire, forcing the Ottomans to rethink their assaults. This wasn't just about technology. It was about psychology. The Ottomans, used to intimidating their foes through sheer numbers and reputation, now faced enemies who could strike back with precision, patience, and ingenuity. Morale, discipline, and leadership became as important as cannons and ships. Europe had the tools, the tactics, and the courage, but theory alone wouldn't stop the Ottomans. To prove that strategy and psychology could outweigh numbers, a small island in the Mediterranean would soon face the empire's full fury. and how it endured would reveal the true power of Europe's secret weapon.
Malta, held by the Knights Hospitaller, was small but strategically vital. The Ottomans saw it as a stepping stone to dominate the Mediterranean completely. Their fleet approached in force, expecting an easy conquest. What they found instead was preparation, intelligence, and determination. The Knights had reinforced fortifications with the latest artillery and trap designs. Supplies were stockpiled, and every soldier knew their role. When the Ottoman fleet arrived, they faced an unexpected combination of firepower, strategic positioning, and relentless defense. Cannons fired from concealed positions, galleys struck at weak points, and night raids harassed the besiegers relentlessly. The Ottomans were stunned. They expected a quick victory, but encountered resistance they could not anticipate. The siege dragged on, morale faltered, and cracks appeared in Ottoman command and coordination. Malta had become the first demonstration that Europe's secret weapon was not just in its cannons or ships, but in the minds and planning of those who wielded them. But Malta was only the beginning. The Ottomans would regroup, and Europe would have to prove that its secret weapon could win not just one battle, but an entire war. Alone, Malta had survived, but Europe needed more than courage. It needed unity. The threat of the Ottoman Empire forced centuries-old rivals to reconsider priorities. Venice, Spain, and the Papal States began discussing coordinated efforts. Europe's secret weapon wasn't just artillery or fortifications, it was the ability to pool resources, share intelligence, and act in concert against a common foe. Naval coordination became key. Fleets trained to synchronize movements, cover one another, and create traps for the Ottoman navy. Cities built supply chains, while engineers shared knowledge about new artillery techniques. Europe was learning to think strategically as a continent, rather than as fragmented states. At the same time, spies and scouts gathered intelligence on Ottoman movements, feeding commanders information that could tip the balance. The combination of human ingenuity, coordination, and technological advantage made the Ottomans increasingly cautious and, for the first time, vulnerable. Yet, even with alliances forming, the Ottomans were not idle. Their next assault would test whether Europe's secret weapon could survive the firestorm to come, and whether coordination alone could stop an empire. The Ottomans believed their massive cannons could batter any wall, but Europe had learned to fight smarter. Though Constantinople had fallen decades earlier, Ottoman ambition continued to threaten the Mediterranean. European engineers and military leaders analyzed historical sieges, studying both successes and failures. They realized that artillery alone wasn't enough. Fortifications had to be redesigned, combining angles, moats, and overlapping fields of fire to nullify Ottoman advantages. Coastal forts were reinforced with massive cannons positioned to cover every approach. Engineers devised movable artillery platforms, allowing defenders to strike ships before they reached effective range. Training focused not just on firing, but on timing, accuracy, and psychological impact. Every volley intended to intimidate as well as destroy. When Ottoman scouts tested these defenses, they were shocked. Walls that should have fallen under cannon fire remained standing. Ships attempting to penetrate the fortresses faced withering, coordinated attacks. The lesson was clear. Europe's secret weapon was not just one device. It was preparation, ingenuity, and coordination amplified by firepower. Cliffhanger transition. But defending ports was only one part of the battle. The real test would come when Europe's secret weapon was unleashed on the open sea against the Ottoman fleet.
On the water, the Ottomans ruled for centuries. The Mediterranean was the Ottomans' domain. Their galleys were numerous, fast, and seasoned. Traditional naval tactics relied on boarding and overwhelming enemies with sheer manpower. Europe needed innovation to stand a chance. European commanders began integrating artillery into ships, turning galleys into floating fortresses.
Firepower replaced brute force with coordinated volleys capable of devastating enemy formations before boarding could even begin. Naval formations were rethought. Squadrons moved in interlocking patterns, covering each other and creating kill zones. Scouts and signal flags relayed information, allowing rapid response to unexpected maneuvers. Crews trained relentlessly, focusing on accuracy, speed, and cooperation, turning raw technology into a finely tuned weapon. When the first major engagement occurred, the Ottomans were stunned. Ships they had considered inferior inflicted catastrophic damage, disrupting centuries of naval dominance. Europe's secret weapon had crossed from land to sea, and the balance of power was shifting. But the Ottomans would not concede easily. The coming battle would push Europe's strategies, coordination, and courage to the absolute limit. Few battles in history were as decisive, as terrifying, or as dramatic as Lepanto. By 1571, the Ottoman fleet had rebuilt, aiming to dominate the Mediterranean entirely. Europe's response was unprecedented. A coalition of Venice, Spain, and the Papal States, united in purpose and equipped with the latest innovations in artillery and naval strategy. The Battle of Lepanto was a symphony of coordination and firepower. Ships moved in carefully planned formations. Gunners trained for synchronized volleys, and soldiers executed boarding maneuvers with precision. The Ottomans, expecting to rely on experience and numbers, faced a new type of warfare, one that combined technology, intelligence, and flawless teamwork. The fighting was brutal. Smoke from cannons clouded the horizon. Ships collided, exploded, and burned. Yet Europe's forces held together, each unit supporting the other. The Ottomans, unprepared for this level of coordination and firepower, began to falter. By the end of the day, the Ottoman navy suffered a devastating defeat, their aura of invincibility shattered. Victory at Lepanto was monumental, but Europe knew this was not the end. The Ottomans would regroup, and the secret weapon would have to evolve to keep them in check. While battles raged, a quieter revolution was reshaping the European landscape. Europeans realized that the secret weapon extended beyond ships. Land fortifications, artillery design, and defensive tactics had to evolve in tandem with naval innovation. Engineers designed star-shaped forts, angled bastions, and layered artillery emplacements, making it nearly impossible for Ottoman cannons to breach walls effectively. These fortresses didn't just protect cities, they dictated strategy. They forced Ottoman commanders to rethink sieges, split their forces, and expend resources in ways that favored European defenders. Artillery crews practiced coordinated volleys that could halt entire battalions. Supply lines were fortified, and intelligence networks tracked Ottoman movements with unprecedented efficiency. The psychological impact was profound. Where the Ottomans once assumed superiority, now hesitation crept in. Morale declined. Commanders argued. Europe's secret weapon was no longer a novelty. It had become a strategic doctrine, combining engineering, firepower, coordination, and human ingenuity. Yet even with fortified cities, disciplined armies, and powerful fleets, Europe would soon face the ultimate test, defending against a massive Ottoman campaign that threatened to undo everything.
After Lepanto, the Ottoman Empire began rebuilding its fleet and armies. They learned from defeat, refining strategies and targeting Europe's weak points. Europe's secret weapon, artillery, fortresses, and coordination, would face its sternest test yet. Ottoman admirals launched attacks on smaller ports and trade routes, hoping to draw European forces apart. On land, large-scale raids tested fortified cities. Europe responded with speed, reinforcing defenses, rotating garrisons, and coordinating naval patrols. The secret weapon showed its adaptability. Engineers modified fortresses based on prior battles. Naval tactics evolved to counter Ottoman maneuvers. Commanders rotated crews to prevent exhaustion. Even small victories, like repelling a raid on a minor port, sent a psychological shockwave through Ottoman ranks. Despite constant pressure, European forces held. Ottomans grew frustrated, realizing that sheer numbers were no longer enough. The battle was no longer just about firepower.
It was about intelligence, preparation, and the ability to anticipate every move. But the Ottomans were not done scheming. Their next attack would bring a massive campaign that could overwhelm even the best prepared European defenses. Malta, strategically located in the Mediterranean, faced an unprecedented Ottoman assault. Tens of thousands of troops arrived, expecting an easy conquest. Europe's secret weapon, fortifications, artillery, and disciplined troops, was about to face a full-scale test. Knights and local defenders manned thick walls, cannons, and hidden fortifications. Engineers had reinforced weak points, built traps, and created overlapping fields of fire. Every Ottoman advance was met with precise volleys and relentless resistance. The psychological dimension played a key role. Ottomans, used to overwhelming opponents, were disoriented by unexpected defenses. Morale faltered. Coordination tracks appeared in their ranks. European defenders exploited these openings, launching counterattacks, raids, and flanking maneuvers that inflicted maximum disruption. Days turned into weeks. Every assault the Ottomans launched was repelled, and their supply lines strained. Malta became a symbol. The secret weapon wasn't just technology. It was preparation, courage, and unyielding strategy applied consistently. Cliffhanger transition. But even as Malta held, Europe faced another looming threat. The Ottomans would regroup for a massive offensive that could overwhelm even the best prepared European defenses. The Ottomans rebuilt their navy, intending to dominate sea lanes and supply routes. Europe, now coordinated through alliances, had to counter them decisively. Fleets combined technology, training, and strategic positioning in a way the Ottomans hadn't seen before. Naval engagements were complex. Squadrons created interlocking fields of cannon fire. Scouts and signal systems relayed enemy movements in real time. Coastal forts and ships coordinated attacks that created deadly traps for approaching Ottoman fleets. Psychological warfare played a huge role. Rumors of European reinforcements, combined with aggressive tactics, forced Ottoman commanders to second-guess every maneuver. Even when outnumbered, Europeans used strategy to divide, isolate, and neutralize Ottoman units. The secret weapon proved versatile. It could hold land, dominate sea, and leverage intelligence to compensate for smaller numbers. Europe had transformed from fragmented states into a force capable of standing against the mightiest empire in the Mediterranean. Yet the final confrontation loomed, a coordinated Ottoman campaign that could break the momentum if Europe faltered, even slightly. The Ottomans launched a coordinated assault across multiple fronts, expecting to overwhelm Europe. Cities, forts, and fleets faced simultaneous attacks. But Europe's secret weapon, integrated fortifications, artillery, naval tactics, and alliances, was ready. Europeans responded with precision. Artillery decimated advancing troops before they reached walls. Naval fleets trapped Ottoman ships in crossfires. Communication networks allowed rapid reinforcement, ensuring no front collapsed. Psychological impact was decisive. Ottoman commanders were confused, morale dipped, and hesitation spread across the battlefield. Over weeks of relentless defense, Europe forced the Ottomans to retreat. Cities remained intact, fleets survived, and the empire's expansion into Europe stalled for decades. The secret weapon, a combination of innovation, preparation, and coordination, had won the day. This victory didn't just preserve territories, it shifted power in the Mediterranean and proved that strategy, discipline, and ingenuity could overcome even the most formidable enemy. Europe had survived, but the lessons of this secret weapon would resonate for centuries, shaping wars, alliances, and the future of the continent. Europe's victory against the Ottoman Empire was not accidental. It was the product of vision, ingenuity, and relentless preparation. The secret weapon wasn't a single cannon, ship, or fortress. It was the integration of technology, strategy, intelligence, and human courage. From Malta to Lepanto, from fortified cities to coordinated fleets, Europeans showed that coordination and innovation could counter even the largest and most experienced armies. Leadership, morale, and adaptivity turned ordinary men and women into a force capable of defending a continent. The lasting legacy is clear. Wars are won not by numbers alone, but by preparation, coordination, and the ability to adapt. Europe's secret weapon became a blueprint for generations, influencing military strategy for centuries. It was a reminder that ingenuity, courage, and foresight can shape the destiny of nations, even against overwhelming odds. If you enjoyed this journey into Europe's secret weapon against the Ottomans, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment which historical battle or strategy you want us to uncover next. Dive deeper with us into the tactics, innovations, and courage that shaped history, because these epic stories deserve to be remembered and explored.